Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. So I've often said that the most interesting weeks on Billboard Breakdown aren't the album bombs themselves, but the weeks that will come right after them, where you see what survives, what continues on the downward spiral, and what rushes in to fill all the gaps when so many songs fall away the very next week. Now, up until a few weeks ago, I was certain that Justin Timberlake would be the one to fill much of what Migos spewed in with Culture 2 when it was all going away, but with an underwhelming Super Bowl performance and Man of the Woods being panned as hard as it has been, that didn't really happen. As such, we're stuck with a pretty wild assortment here this week, at least until the Black Panther soundtrack is a mini album bomb of its own in a week or two. Trust me, that's gonna happen. But hey, if that means a mildly short week for me on the Hot 100, considering how much catch-up I have to do after being laid up with food poisoning the past couple days, I will take whatever the hell I can get. Alright, so our top 10 where... Oh, come on. Drake is still in the top with God's Plan. I mean, I get it. The sales, the streaming, the YouTube numbers, they're huge, and I can't deny how fast it's gaining on the radio, but that is not a song I have thought or cared about at all since I've heard it, and I can imagine to most people that I've talked to, they would probably feel the same. At least Perfect by Ed Sheeran, which is lodged in number 2 thanks to good sales and a solid radio lead even despite spins bleeding away. At least it tried to be kind of tepidly interesting with all the remixes he had. You know what, I can't say that with a straight face, that song's not interesting either. At least Finesse by Bruno Mars and Cardi B is a really good tune at number 3, surging on the radio and with really solid YouTube and streaming. It's just that the sales aren't where they need to be to get any higher yet, which is really damn frustrating. Then you have our next two, which held their positions again, but seem to be fading fairly steadily. Havana by Camila Cabello, featuring Young Thug at number 4, thanks to YouTube and airplay, and Rockstar by Post Malone, featuring 21 Savage at number 5, thanks to a lot more streaming. And I can see one or both of them being vulnerable to New Rules by Dua Lipa, actually up a spot to number 6, or at least I would say that if I didn't feel like the airplay is wavering, and that's really all it has at this point, really all it's had for the past couple of weeks. And this takes us to our first new arrival in the top 10, Pray For Me by The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar at number 7, getting the push that Sidewalks never properly did. And while I'll be talking a fair bit more about the song's actual quality later on, it does have the sales, the streaming, and the airplay traction to be a possible hit in its own right, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not it sticks around. Then we've got our next new entry to the top 10, and one I'm actually pretty pleased to see here, Stir Fry by Migos at number 8. What can I say? I like the song, and even though it's only here thanks to streaming, I'd be curious to see how long that momentum will last to keep it in the top 10, or whether or not it can get even higher. Unfortunately, our next new entry I'm nowhere close to being as happy to see here, Meant to Be by BB Rexa and Florida Georgia Line at number 9. And I want to make this abundantly clear for those of you at the back. This is a pop song promoted by desperate country radio performers and playlist makers who have no idea what a country song actually is. And bringing together a C-list pop artist and with a washed-up bro country duo to produce this stale bit of emptiness only denigrates the strengths of both pop and country, a fusion of genres with absolutely zero flavor. And yet, given that its sales and its radio are good, it's probably gonna stick around. Fan-fucking-tastic. And finally, we've got Bad at Love by Halsey, and considering how bad it's hemorrhaging airplay, which is really all it has at this point, it's no surprise that it's down at number 10. Now, moving on to our losers and dropouts. This is where the week after the album bomb becomes a little bit more intriguing, because while you lose the expected swath of Migos songs, what also falls out with them can be kind of intriguing as well. And there were a surprising number of them. Mic Drop by BTS featuring Designer, Rubbing Off the Paint by YBN Namir, Round Here Buzz by Eric Church, The Way Life Goes by Lil Uzi Vert featuring Nicki Minaj and Oh Wonder, and finally, Believer by Imagine Dragons. All of them, they're out. Now, granted, we didn't lose every Migos tune. There were a fair few losers in this category too. Bad Bitches Only with 21 Savage down to 89, Notice Me with Post Malone to 72, Narcos to 50, and Walk It Talk It with Drake to 48. Hell, Drake also took another hit for Diplomatic Immunity to 83. That song's gonna be gone and gone fast. Then there's the natural fallout for Gucci Gang by Lil Pump, as it seems like people finally got sick of it, down to 36, and we got some expected fades in country. Losing Sleep by Chris Young is down to 71, It'll Be Gone next week at the end of its natural run, and You Make It Easy by Jason Aldean off the debut last week to 52. Although, I expect country radio to keep this guy around. Jason Aldean's such an established artist, and this song is actually pretty good too. And now we have what rushed in to fill the gap, the gains and the returning entries, and we had a bunch of the latter, so let's blow through these as quickly as possible. Now, some of them you would expect to fill the vacuum, like Rock by Plies at 99, and of course Justin Timberlake was going to get Supplies back at number 100. And with the Super Bowl, Carrie Underwood and Ludacris got The Champion back at 56. Folks, you don't need to worry about this being a major country crossover. It's got nowhere close to the country radio it needs to be relevant there, so they're doing something right at least. It's not getting the spins it needs to get bigger. But it's our last two returning entries that sparked some confusion for me. Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons as their newest single at 87, which I actually don't mind. It's probably the best of their single releases thus far. It's just weird seeing it here. And Criminal by Naughty Natasha and Ozuna at 95, which I would put money on it being here because for some reason the Hot 100 is trying to make Ozuna a thing. Why also that awful song El Forsante getting a remix with Romeo Santos, launching this up to 49 off the debut? Why would this be happening otherwise? And yeah, we are now on to our gains, and really the only consistent one is Mine by Bozzy, which looks like it's going to be a smash hit in the making, and as it's a pretty good song, I'm actually okay with that. As for the others, well, Kendrick Lamar notched a few successes with the Black Panther soundtrack, with All the Stars with SZA riding the video to 31, and King's Dead with J-Rock, Future, and James Blake up to 69, that's still weird to say that, plus that mess of a song New Freezer with Rich the Kid to 60 off of streaming traction, and hell, Justin Timberlake managed to get Filthy a little bit more traction back up to 34, don't expect it to last. And then we got a mixed scattering for the rest. Most People Are Good by Luke Bryan gets a little momentum up to 84, and Beautiful Trauma by Pink had a decent sales week up to 78. I don't expect the latter to last, but hey, you never know, it's not that bad of a song. But now on to our list of new arrivals, and man alive, it is all over the place. So, you know what, let's start with number 98, A Girl Like You by Easton, Corbin.
No, baby, don't ever change. And I wonder when I see the smile on your face, baby, what did I do to ever get a girl like you, a girl like you?
Man, there's a part of me that just kind of feels bad for Easton Corbin. He played closer to neo-traditional country with a good voice throughout most of his career and a solid tone that could have easily fit onto the radio. When I last talked about him in 2015, he just wound up falling through the cracks like so many of the other guys who broke in that era. So there's a part of me that doesn't exactly blame him for hopping on a song that's obviously more synthetic with some of the gurgling synths trying to blend in with the pedal steel, or the obviously fake drum machine clashing with the real drums, and the backing vocals, the higher timbre that don't quite match with his richer baritone, or lyrics from the bro country songwriting crew that slip into the unfortunate trap of referencing bro country cliches in contrast, but still winding up just sounding just as cliched themselves. And if you can't tell by now, this song is just a bit of a mess overall. It's not precisely bad, there is some groove in it, and Easton Corbin can sell sincerity, and I do like his dogged commitment to wedge some fuller country tones into the song. There is pedal steel here, I can admire that, but it feels a fair bit more awkward than it should. His stuff in the early 2010s was better, and that's a tad disappointing. Not bad, but not exactly great either. Number 94, Singles You Up by Jordan Davis.
I'ma be the first one calling in crazy. Cause girl, it's just a matter of time until you find that the right guy staring you back into your eyes right now. No rush, but if he ever singles you up.
You know, it wasn't that long ago that it felt like every other week we were getting a new, fresh-faced guy from mainstream country where you literally could not tell them apart. Now, that kind of went away with bro country's collapse to be replaced with a new trap artist every other week, but seeing Jordan Davis's debut song sparked some of those old feelings. He comes from a family of country songwriters and singers, but you sure as hell wouldn't be able to tell with all that fake percussion and trap hi-hats that's layered all over the guitars on the hook. Guitars that, again, might be the only damn concession this song has to being a country song. But then we get the lyrics. Okay, the phrase singles you up is not a thing. It's not something anyone uses to describe getting dumped. And then we get the meat of things, where we get a song where if this other guy ever dumps her, Jordan Davis, he's just there to step in, because you know what? They've got so much more chemistry. The other guy, he's just too city anyhow. He's trying to push her into that lane. And am I the only one who finds it screamingly disingenuous when you're coming from the Nashville establishment and you're calling him too city, even despite this being a half step away from Sam Hunt. And yeah, you know what? I can kind of appreciate that he's at least trying to paint a lyrical picture where this could potentially work, but no, you know what? I'm not even gonna bullshit here. This doesn't work. Next, number 93, The Long Way by Brett Eldredge.
Shine underneath of the diamond I think I just found. Take me the long way around.
Really, America? You skipped on something I'm good at? One of Brett Eldredge's most wild and utterly infectious songs for this? Now granted, that song might have been a tricky sell for country radio at any time. It's pretty damn quirky, but Brett Eldredge is at his best when he tilts into his off-kilter weirdness. The song was certainly catchy enough, especially if Nashville's decided that nobody wants to hear Brad Paisley on the radio anymore, which is wrong. Now sadly, The Long Way isn't quite as quirky or fun, but that's also because it's a bit of a bait and switch, opening up with a sort of pop country synthesizer that would typically immediately push me away, and then he buries it underneath pedal steel, a gentle bass and percussion groove, and deep reverb touch guitars. And then the synth almost starts reminding me of some of the accents you hear off that last War on Drugs album, and that's only a compliment. It actually turns out pretty good. And yeah, you know what? The content's not exactly deep. It's just a deeply earnest love song where Brett Eldredge wants to get to know his girl better. But he sells it so damn well, especially when he dips into a surprisingly effective lower range on the bridge. So yeah, it's not really better than something I'm good at, but it's still pretty damn good. So yeah, for country radio, I'll take it. Number 92, At the Club by Jacquees and Dej Loaf.
Can you party with a thug? I'm just trying to show you love. VIP, we got it packed. This is where the party at. You the one I wanna know. So tell me how it's supposed to go.
So I've come around on Dej Loaf a bit since she broke out, especially as it seems like she's tilting closer to more subtle R&B instead of hip-hop tones that she can never quite convincingly sell. So when she teamed up with Jacquees, who was pulling in some decent work himself behind the scenes, but still finding a little bit more of his footing for a collaborative mixtape called No Joke, Fuck a Friend Zone, hell, I was intrigued, especially if they could nab a chart spot, and man alive, I wish I liked this more. Jacquees is sounding more comfortable, even if I'm still waiting for him to really cut loose in his upper register that he clearly has. And I like the glossy interpolations of the production from The Boy's Mind, especially juxtapose the sharper, wiry bass synths to modernize it. But Dej Loaf, would it kill you to even try to rhyme on your verse? I'm not saying that Jacquees is much better, but when you have a song this low-key and trying to be steamy, that sort of thing kind of kills the flow and vibe for me. Again, it's not really bad, but man, I really wish I could have liked this a lot more. Number 90, Hardaway by Derez Deshawn.
Don't feel it Hardaway. I ain't asked now, nigga, for nothing. I took the Hardaway. 12 put me over, coming with the dope. They took my Hardaway. Hardaway. Don't feel it Hardaway.
You know it's not really a good thing when the first things you discover researching an artist you never heard of is that he's part of Rich Gang, that posse that Birdman rotates through every year or so, and that he doesn't actually write down his bars, leading the actual content to be found in the editing. So yeah, not a lot of confidence going in here, and honestly, I probably should be a lot harsher on this than I will be. Part of this is the production, which is really good from London on the track. The piano line behind that hook is solid, especially off that thicker trap beat, and Derez Deshawn does have some emotive charisma behind the microphone, most because you can tell that he's actually a little bit more honest and will actually admit not really knowing what he was doing selling drugs or being too fat to fit in a coupe. That's kind of endearing in a weird sort of way. But at the same time, man alive, if I'm being harsh on Dej Loaf for not rhyming, I have to be just as harsh when he's rhyming words with themselves here. It just feels really awkward and basic. Beyond that, you know what, I kind of get why it's blown up off of this production. It's not bad, almost endearing in a clumsy sort of way. Kind of reminds me of Fetty Wap in a weird way, and I don't mind that. But I can see myself getting tired of this pretty damn quickly, and that's a little disappointing. Number 81, Dura by Daddy Yankee. So just to side thought. Am I the only one who finds it kind of weird that suddenly Daddy Yankee is a charting presence now and that Pitbull isn't? They came up in the same wave. Pitbull had a bizarrely long run, but where you'd think he'd be able to capitalize on reggaeton, Daddy Yankee just swooped in to take his spot. I mean, I say all this more as an observation than anything else. Mostly because, well, Daddy Yankee might be sleazier than your average reggaeton singer, he can at least make the songs marginally more interesting, and Dura is a prime example. Take the production with the spikes of horns, the thicker synth warbles, the more textured burbles around the percussion. It just does a wonderful job accenting how Daddy Yankee keeps calling his girl hard, or how he'll outright admit there will be other women, but you know what, she's special. And even though he doesn't know her recipe, he's gonna eat her out well, and then out comes the handcuffs, and okay, seriously, no judgment here, but at least Daddy Yankee can sell this sort of hookup better than Ozuna can. But a song like this does play a little bit broader than it probably should, at least for me. Still, you know, when it comes to reggaeton, I can recognize this. It's not bad, not at all. Number 73, Man of the Woods by Justin Timberlake.
But I'm a man of the woods, it's my pride. I'm sorry, baby, you know I try. But I'm a man of the woods, it's my pride.
Okay, there weren't that many good songs off of Man of the Woods, so why in the nine hells did somebody decide that the title track was one to check out with that keening atonal moog oscillation? It's the blubbery bass snap and the sharper guitar rolling. And then when you tack on how Justin Timberlake is gonna take it too far, but that's okay because you know the making up's fun. Yeah, no, even despite the synth and guitar having no momentum whatsoever, this trying to frame itself as a sex song because Justin Timberlake is a man of the woods and it's his pride, I guess, as if that has absolutely anything to do with it. Seriously, I kinda get the dick joke if you squint at it, but it feels so forced and quickly stops making any sort of sense. Even if the vocal hook is kinda catchy, it does not fit a sex song. And hell, take the reference to the faucet on the pre-chorus. Obviously, he's talking about a dick, but her fingers are gliding down her legs, not his. So unless there's something about Jessica Biel that none of us knew about, and yes, that's what he was talking about when he wrote this song, that's just bad songwriting. I'm sorry. Yeah, easily one of the worst tracks off a pretty damn mediocre record. Pass. And finally, number 7, Pray For Me by The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar.
See my soul for me, 'cause I'm alone to see. If I'm gon' die for you, if I'm gon' kill for you, then I spill this blood for you. Hey.
Alright, look, I'm excited for Black Panther to come out. The movie's on my schedule, I'll be seeing it within a week. But I'm still not really hearing the hype around the soundtrack, as the songs that have landed in the Hot 100 just haven't really impressed me much. They're just okay to pretty good, they're not really great. And while Kendrick is curating the project, part of this comes down to the expectation that Marvel and Disney will not let them get that transgressive. And on some level, this isn't really transgressive or challenging either from Kendrick Lamar or The Weeknd, but it probably gets closer to a sound and groove that works for me than the other Black Panther songs thus far. The bass beat melody is kind of odd opposite those warping 80s inspired synths, and some of the odd shuddering vocal warbles from The Weeknd don't really click for me, especially against the flutes on the bridge, and it's just hard to feel like Kendrick isn't just on autopilot again. But the darker nihilistic themes balanced against the ideas of self-sacrifice are probably the most natural continuation of the themes that both artists have explored on previous albums, both Starboy and Damn, and it's a pretty natural synthesis. It comes together pretty well, coupled with a pretty damn great groove. Yeah, I don't mind this at all. It's a pretty damn good song. Wasn't expecting to like it as much as I do, but yeah, I do like it. But as a whole, man, this week was all over the place in terms of new arrivals, but I'm giving the best to Brett Eldredge for the long way. It's got its issues, sure, but at the end of the day, it connects the most for me, and it feels the least flawed in comparison with Pray For Me at Honourable Mention. Worst, yeah, Man of the Woods by Justin Timberlake just annoyed the hell out of me. It gets that slot. With Dishonourable Mention going to Singles You Up by Jordan Davis. If you're gonna call somebody out on being too city, maybe make the damn effort to actually sound like a country song and not an acoustic trap leftover. Anyway, next week we might see an album bomb from the Black Panther soundtrack, which, considering I don't review movie soundtracks, would give me a chance to cover it on this show. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse.